everyone, welcome to this deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring the work of Dr. Ijaz S. Hussein.
Okay.
And, you reached out to us because you're really interested in personal and professional development and looking for some unique perspectives.
Yeah.
And I think we found a really fascinating source in his Smart Shepherding Practices news.
It's not a book or an article.
Yeah.
It's like this collection of newsletters spanning a number of years.
I know. It's like we get to
It's really cool.
peek inside his brain.
Yeah, over
Sure.
time. Exactly. Like this long conversation that he's having with himself and his readers over time.
Yeah, and one of the things that I noticed that kept coming up was this idea of
Compounding.
But he's not talking about interest
No.
or investments.
Not just that.
Great.
He's using it as this like metaphor for how we grow as people.
So it's not just about like acquiring knowledge or skills.
Right. It's about how we choose experiences and then integrate those experiences and who we become.
Kind of like a pharmacist, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're combining different ingredients to create something even more potent.
Right, and he has this really interesting story about his grandmother.
Right.
And I was hoping you could unpack this a little bit because
Yeah.
he talks about this phrase, namak haram.
Namak haram, which translates to betrayer of salt.
What?
And in Dr. Hussein's culture, it symbolizes a very deep betrayal of trust or loyalty.
Wow.
And he uses it to emphasize how even small acts of, dishonesty or disloyalty can really damage our character over time.
It's interesting because that seems to connect to his idea of what he calls smart shepherding.
Right.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, he encourages this like very deliberate and conscious approach to life.
Okay.
Really emphasizing self-awareness, critical thinking, ethical decision-making.
So like you're the shepherd of your own life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, in order to understand the terrain that we're shepherding ourselves through, he introduces the consciousness.
Okay, yeah, I was hoping we could get into that because he describes it as a map of human development,
Right.
but I'm not really sure I understand how it works.
You can think of it like levels in a video game.
Okay.
As you progress through the game, you gain new abilities and you see things from a different perspective.
So like as we develop as humans, we kind of level up.
That's a great way to put it. It's each of these orders of consciousness to a different finger on a hand.
Oh, wow.
Using something called the Gyan Mudra,
Okay.
which is this ancient hand gesture.
Oh, so they were thinking about this even back then.
Exactly. It's not a new idea.
That's amazing.
Right.
I'm really curious to learn more about like where we fit into these different, but before we get into that, there's another image that I kept seeing over and over.
Yes.
Which is the elephant and the migratory bird.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think those might represent?
I feel like the elephant, with its size and strength, maybe that represents wisdom or groundedness.
Yep.
And then the bird, soaring freely, perspective or a sense of freedom.
You're picking up on exactly what he seems to be saying.
Okay.
The elephant is about recognizing our own strengths and breaking free from limitations. And then the bird is about having the courage to explore the unknown, seek out new perspectives.
So it's like we need the elephant and the bird to really navigate life.
Exactly. We need both the strength to face challenges and the
Right.
perspective to see the bigger picture.
Right. And this seems to be especially important in what some people are calling the zero trust era.
Right.
Where cybersecurity is such a big concern and people are less trusting of institutions.
Yeah,
It feels like we're constantly questioning everything. That can be exhausting.
it can.
But Dr. Hussein seems to be saying that his smart shepherding practices can help us navigate this environment.
Yeah, he's saying we can use those principles to make better decisions and become more resilient.
Instead of just being paralyzed by fear and suspicion.
Right. And he points out this really interesting paradox.
Okay.
He says distrust
Yeah.
becomes a system that no one trusts.
That is a paradox, isn't it?
It is.
And one of the things that I'm really interested in is artificial intelligence.
Yes,
And you mentioned that Dr. Hussein has quite a bit to say about that as well.
he does. He's both fascinated by AI and a little wary of it.
Okay.
And he with AI tools
Really?
like ChatGPT
Wow.
and AI image generators.
I wonder what he's trying to learn from those interactions.
Yeah, it seems like he's using these tools to kind of explore his own thinking and challenge his assumptions.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So he's using AI to help him think
exactly.
about AI.
It's very meta.
It is. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating, and I can't wait to dive deeper into Dr. Hussein's ideas.
You too?
But I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
Yeah, we have.
So why don't we take a little break here?
Yeah.
And we'll come back and continue this exploration in part 2.
Sounds good. So where were we?
We were talking about artificial intelligence.
Right. And Dr. Hussein's AI tools.
Yes. I'm really curious to hear more about what he learned from interacting with tools like ChatGPT.
He's actually quite concerned about the potential for AI to be used for bad.
Oh, really?
For things like control and manipulation.
Like that Moloch concept we talked about earlier.
Exactly. He sees Moloch as this kind of force that demands sacrifice.
Yeah, and he's worried that AI could become a modern-day version of that.
That's right.
So it's not just about AI becoming self-aware and taking over the world.
No, it's more about how humans might misuse AI.
For their own selfish purposes.
Exactly. To gain power, control over others.
So how do we prevent that from happening?
Well, this idea of smart contracting.
Smart contracting, okay.
Yeah, it's about designing AI systems with kind of built-in safeguards.
So it's not just about what AI can do.
No, it's also about what it should and shouldn't do.
Like setting boundaries.
That's a good way to think about it.
And he stresses that this can't just be left to the tech companies.
Right. We need empathists, philosophers, even artists.
Oh, wow. A lot of different perspectives.
Yeah, it's about making sure that AI reflects the values of humanity as a whole.
That makes a lot of sense, but I'm still kind of stuck on the idea of him experimenting with ChatGPT.
Right.
I mean, it sounds like he's using these AI tools to help him think about AI.
Yeah.
It is, and I find it fascinating.
Right.
I mean, it's like using AI as a tool for self-discovery.
In a way, yeah.
I wonder if he asked ChatGPT any really thought-provoking questions.
I'm sure he did. He's always pushing the boundaries.
So what else did he have to say about AI?
Well, he talked about the importance of emotional intelligence.
That doesn't really have emotions, does it?
Not in the same way that humans do.
Right.
But Dr. Hussein believes that humans need to develop their emotional intelligence.
So we can better understand and interact with AI.
Yeah, and also just to navigate the complexities of life in general.
So it's about being more self-aware.
Yes.
Understanding our own emotions.
Exactly. And also being able to empathize.
And why is empathy so important?
Well, Dr. Hussein talks about the dangers of what he calls emotional contagion.
What's that?
It's like how negative emotions can spread really quickly.
Like through social media.
Yeah.
Creating a climate of fear and anger.
That's right.
Oh, I see. So empathy is kind of like the antidote that helps us to connect with each other on a deeper level.
And to understand each other's perspectives.
And he has some interesting ideas about how we can cultivate empathy and emotional resilience.
Right.
I'm really curious to hear more about that.
Well, he talks about the importance of mindfulness.
Mindfulness, okay.
Yeah. It's about being present in the moment.
Okay.
Paying attention to our thoughts and feelings.
Without judgment. Also talks about the importance of connection.
Yeah, connecting with others.
Building relationships.
Exactly, because we're not meant to go through life alone.
We need each other.
We do.
That's a really beautiful message.
It is.
So how does this all connect back to smart shepherding practices?
Well, it's about being more conscious and deliberate in how we live our lives, making choices that are aligned with our values.
And being the shepherds of our own destiny.
Exactly. We've been talking a lot about individual growth.
Yeah.
But Dr. Hussein also spends a lot of time thinking about the challenges facing society as a whole.
Right. And I know some of his ideas might be a little controversial.
They can be. But I think it's important to remember that he's always trying to encourage thoughtful discussion.
Right. He's not trying to tell anyone what to think.
Exactly.
So what are some of the big societal issues that he grapples with?
Well, he talks a lot about the post-truth era.
Right, where it feels like everyone has their own version of reality.
Exactly. And it can be really hard to know what to believe.
Social media and all the misinformation out there.
Right. And he sees this as a major threat to democracy and to our ability to solve problems together.
Because if we can't even agree on basic facts,
it becomes impossible to have a productive conversation.
Exactly. So what does he suggest we do about it?
Well, he talks about the need for what he calls sense-making.
Okay.
Another smart concept.
Yeah. It's about developing the skills to critically evaluate information.
To figure out what's true and what's not.
Exactly. And to recognize our own biases.
Because we all have biases.
We do. It's part of being human.
So smart sense-making is about becoming more aware of our own biases.
Right. And also by the biases of others.
So we can have more productive conversations even with people we disagree with.
That's the goal. And he also talks about the importance of cultivating a developmental stance.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one. What does he mean by developmental stance?
It's about recognizing that we're all constantly learning and growing.
And that we all make mistakes along the way.
We're forgiving of ourselves and others.
Exactly. And it's about approaching disagreements with curiosity rather than judgment.
So instead of assuming that someone who disagrees with us is just wrong or stupid,
We try to understand their perspective.
And maybe even learn something from them.
Exactly.
It's about seeing each other as fellow travelers in life.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
So how do we actually put these ideas into practice?
Well, Dr. Hussein offers a lot of practical advice in his newsletter.
Like what?
He talks about the importance of asking questions.
Okay.
Seeking out diverse perspectives.
Not just surrounding ourselves with people who agree with us.
Right, and he emphasizes the importance of
listening.
Yeah, trying to understand where the other person is coming from.
Even if we don't agree with them?
Exactly.
It sounds like it all comes back to that idea of smart shepherding practices.
Yeah, it's about taking responsibility for our own thoughts and actions.
And choosing to create a more positive and productive world.
Right.
Well, this has been such a fascinating...
Has been.
I feel like I've learned so much about Dr. Hussein's work.
Me too.
And about myself.
That's great to hear.
And I know our listeners are going to want to learn more.
I'm sure they will.
So we'll be sure to include links to his newsletter and other resources in the show notes.
Absolutely.
And I just want to thank you for joining us on this journey.
It's been a pleasure.
I hope you'll tune in again for our...
I will.
Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep shepherding your own path.